very thoughtful, and a genuinely Angelino accent.
Yeah.
If you have had the time to start to write some questions, we will have some volunteers coming down the road to collect questions. They'll be coming to you. They will be coming to you. We're going to let His Excellency drink a little bit of water. And when he's ready, we have a question from someone ready when the bishop is ready.
Oh yeah, right.
Your Excellency, a colleague of mine who teaches ethics at a local university bases her course around the close reading of Supreme Court decisions. How do you see legal decisions as a resource for not only ethics, but also for moral theology and the formation of conscience?
Oh, goodness. I'm neither a moral theologian, but I think at least reading the decisions, what I'm trying to do here is to distinguish between what decisions cover, what the First Amendment covers and what it doesn't cover, what we need to focus on, and especially if the First Amendment doesn't cover exemption from the laws, if the First Amendment does not exempt a doctor from performing abortions, what are the legal arguments that we can develop? And I think there are many legal arguments, but we need to focus on them. And I would say that focus has been a little bit hindered because we have tended to assume that the First Amendment is going to cover that doctor's conscientious objection. And honestly, it probably won't. But there are other things in our tradition and in our laws that will, and those are the ones that need to be developed. I didn't get to that, and I wouldn't say that I'm much of an expert on that, because that comes from other, that it really hasn't been dealt with that much.
Bishop Curry, question from a genuine Thomist. An unjust law is not a law. Does the court have the ability to declare a law unjust? Can it do this without recognizing natural law?
But the court is not going to recognize natural law. There may be acting according to natural law, but it's not going to say they're overturning this law because it is unjust against the natural law. Can the court say that they overturn the law because it is unjust? Yes, no, they don't say that. They can overturn the law because they say it's against the Constitution. But what they discovered was what they call a substantive due process. Let me give you an example of substantive due process. Suppose that you were in Mississippi in the 1930s and you were a black man who was accused of assaulting a white woman, and you were indicted by a grand jury, you were prosecuted, you had legal counsel, you had a trial, you had a jury, but they were all white, and the jury were all related to the supposed victim, and you were convicted. Well, now, you had due process of law there. But the court would say now, no, you didn't have due process of law because it wasn't just. So in that sense, yes, that what was called due process, substantive due process is justice.
Bishop Curry, how do you think Catholic organizations should react to the idea of receiving aid from state and federal governments? Is the best way to begin again? Should schools, orphanages, social services, adoption agencies, should the church get out of that business? What are you thinking of Boston? Or what should the church's response be to these questions?
The response, first of all, is it depends. With regard to Catholic schools, I mean, can we get government aid? Of course we can get government aid. We already do. Depending on the different states, but according to the Supreme Court, we can get busing, we can get lunches, we can get remedial teachers who can come into the schools and teach remedial things. We can get books, we can get computers, we can get all kinds of things. The question is, can the government pay the teachers? And the answer is yes, but The question is, who is going to control the teachers? You know, is the government going to control the teachers, or the school authorities going to control the teachers? If the teacher comes in and says, I'm pro-choice, and I want to continue teaching in the school, and the principal says, no, this is Catholic school, you can't teach here, and the teacher says, well, I'm being paid by the government, it's not your decision, it's the government's decision. That's what we have to accept. If we, on some of the issues like the payment of teachers where controversies are going to arise, then we've got to decide what we want to do. We could accept teachers in math and English and in history and physics and chemistry who would come from the public school to be paid for them. We could have say some of our teachers teach religion and maybe history and some other things. No, they're not paid because we really want them to teach according to Catholic. We could all of those things, but the question is on government jurisdiction. You know, who controls what? There's no problem about textbooks. When we get textbooks, they can send in inspectors to see can the kids read at the same level as the public school. There's no problem at all in those things. It is when you get people, and it's the same applies. Like if a government wants to sponsor a rescue mission. Now, of course you can take the government money. However, the question is, do they have to listen to a sermon before they get paid? Or can you have religious insignia on the wall? Those are the big questions. It's not the government money, it's the question, does it bring the government into making religious decisions? Those are the essential questions.
Why have you left out the Lemon case, which requires that every law have a secular purpose? This test in the Lemon case makes morality legally impossible. Could you explain?
No, the Lemon case is wrong for many reasons. There's three things about it. It must have a secular purpose. Well, the law, in my estimation, the law must not have a secular purpose, because you could pay ministers, as Massachusetts did in 1780, and the state said specifically for the secular purpose to promote the welfare of the state and to promote peace and harmony, that they would pay the ministers. That was a secular purpose, but it was very much a religious law. So the question is that the law must be secular. It must be within the power of the government. It's a secular, I don't mean anti-religious, I mean, the problem, let me go back up a minute. The problem sometimes with the court is that they draw a dichotomy between what's secular and what is religious. You can't draw them in, because the government can say this is secular and within our authority. Now I may decide and you may decide that all those things are religious decisions. You know, and there's no problem with it. A social worker is in a secular job, gets paid by a secular government. But that social worker might go to work every day saying, I am fulfilling my religious vocation. Nothing wrong with it at all. The worker may see their work as entirely religious, but from the point of view of the government, they're doing a secular job. So, but the problem with the Lemon decision that it implemented into the law, the whole idea that the principal and primary purpose of aiding religion, giving the government the deciding to say what aids religion. That's what we need to do away with Lemon and all the other ones who said that we can be the judges of what aids religion. No, we can't. The free exercise of religion is a guarantee that I have the right to determine what aids my religion, not judges in any court. Oh, now here we are at the mosque from ground zero. St. Paul says that, and this is an old translation, says, all things are lawful to me, but not all things are expedient. And so, if we want to discuss about the mosque on ground zero, we have to start with every free exercise of religion in this country. If people want to build a mosque, they have a perfect right to do it. Now I think we can have a fair discussion and a respectful discussion and say, no, look, we're building a mosque here that some people are going to feel it's provocative. It was the question that John Paul dealt with. I mean, with the Carmelite nuns at Auschwitz. The Carmelite nuns had a perfect right to build a convent at Auschwitz. But John Paul said, all things considered to be better. It's provocative, it only causes controversy. I'm not saying that I'm not making a decision one way or another, but I do think we possibly can discuss reasonably and without name calling, to say sometimes things are provocative, that yes, you have the free exercise of religion and you have the perfect right to do this, but all we're bringing up is to say, is this a good time and is this the place to do it? That's all. Oh, what say prayer in public school is okay. Let me distinguish that a government-sponsored prayer in public schools is not okay because a government does not have the right to determine the prayer. If a child, if in each day we have a child getting up to pray, and the child gets up and says, today I want to pray that all Catholic heretics and all Jews who are going to hell will be converted and know Jesus in their hearts. You can't say that, right? But the government, has to tell the child, well, you can't say that. That's not the right kind of prayer. It's not the business of government deciding the right kind of prayer. But the court has decided that if children, if the young people, if people in school want to have a club where they gather to study the Bible after school, that's fine. If the students want to gather at lunchtime and pray and read the Bible, that's fine. The distinction the First Amendment makes is, what is the government doing this or are individuals doing this? If there are individuals doing this, we can carry out our religion in public places and on public property. There's no problem. That's the problem of the imagery of the separation of church and state that has entered into people's minds. They say, this is the realm of the government, this is the realm of the church. No, you can't have religion in the government realm. No, we can have religion everywhere. It's just you cannot have government-sponsored and controlled religion.
Your Excellency, thank you very much. This is the conclusion of our